right. Anyway, we are here and we have officially started. So today we're going to be talking about aim assist because it makes people upset when people talk about it. So, that's the goal. We're going to start and just kind of branch off and go, where did the argument start for aim assist? At what point, what year, what game, what genre, whatever you think was the entry point? When did people start really taking notice of aim assist and saying it was a problem?
I think I have an answer just to start us off real quick.
Go for it.
I mean, it's got to be when crossplay started becoming a thing, right?
I think for Apex at least, I think it started like in the beginning, but it wasn't as prevalent until crossplay came out in October of 2020. During the aftermarket event, I believe like October 6th, something like that, in 2020. That's when it really started to ramp up because of like the intermingling of both console and M&K players, or sorry, PC players. So I think that's when like it started becoming an issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you search for it.
I do.
Oh, so go ahead, Skua.
No, I was gonna say I remember when you convinced me to get a Twitter. Like, it wasn't last year. It was like during the pandemic, I'd say, right?
Yeah, it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, right after I started mine.
It was basically beginning of season 5. You convinced me to get a Twitter, and I got on Twitter, and that was the hot topic at the time. When I first got on Twitter, was just people like going back and forth. That was actually when I saw Zmoke. I didn't know who Zmoke was yet. I just saw his name floating around, essentially, putting his opinions towards it as well, which were, at the time I found very nice because they were defending certain people. I wouldn't, obviously it probably started way before that. I haven't been in any like crossplay lobbies for really ever before Apex. Like I kind of primarily played console games. I was like the last time before recently that I had played mouse and keyboard was literally in a game at a gaming cafe when the first Call of Duty was out, and I played back at there, and like there was no such thing as like people caring about aim assist back then, so like it wasn't really an issue.
I think in the eyes of Apex, aim assist really came into the limelight season 3. The reason for that is season 3 they announced ALGS, and so you saw a lot of top controller players switching over. They went out and bought PCs and started playing PC because they assumed that it would be on PC only. So you may not have seen that in like the rank grinders or the pub stompers, but you definitely saw it in tournaments. And with that, the realization of how powerful aim assist was when you went on Twitter and saw these kids getting reported for cheating. And I remember I was a mouse and keyboard player at the time, and I looked at these clips and I was like, that's cheating. Like, this guy is hacking, because I didn't understand aim assist and controller yet, right? I remember spectating some of the first controller players in ALGS, and I was like, how are they? This guy's cheating. Like, how's he not kicked out of ALGS? And that's when aim assist became a topic in the competitive community. That first ALGS, when people were like, that guy wasn't cheating, that was a controller.
See, that makes sense, because I can see how within the tournament community, that's where it would like definitely start the conversation, because it's like,
I mean, thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and like, so there's going to be a lot of like different competitive challenges within the different inputs, and there's all these new matchups that have never happened before, right? So I can understand it from your perspective, being someone who's really been dominantly mouse and keyboard, like seeing these clips and not understanding what's going on. Like, so, okay, just like, because as a controller player, like strictly, I mean, I see aim assist as a necessity, but I don't know where the line is in terms of how strong it can be. You know what I mean?
I don't. To add on to the like competitive integrity with that, I forget. Albatross, you told me. I want to say it was like soon after we got Twitter. You said something about. I'm not sure if I'm just hearing it wrong, but you said like some pro players, when they would get to like the last few circles, they would actually like pick up a controller instead of like using mouse and keyboard for the rest of that match.
Yeah, people were playing hybrid because of how strong aim assist is in close quarters. So they'd be doing mouse and keyboard, getting long range, farming damage with the charge rifle, getting their kills long range, and then when it came down to the wire, they would pick up a controller, which has since you can't do it anymore. I believe
banned,
from the
right? Yeah.
In a sense, for that one match, I'm pretty sure you have to define one input you're using for the whole match, but you can change that input for the next match. But you cannot do hybrid in a single match in ALGS anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read the rule book in about 6 months or so.
Cannot.
That's the last time. So is what I said accurate then?
Yes, that ended the first GLO Master Series. Right after that is when being able to play hybrid ended. And the main reason that ended was there were players playing in tournaments using soft aim on mouse and keyboard, and they would say that they were playing controller. So they'd be using mouse and keyboard, using hacks, and then when they got confronted, they'd be like, "Oh, I was just playing controller for that portion."
Oh,
And so
that makes sense.
problem,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the problem was when Apex looked into it, they're like, well, you have to pick an input. That way we know, is it controller or is it soft tax? You have to just pick an input.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because if I am playing mouse and keyboard input, but the system on Apex side shows that I'm hitting shots that don't really seem like mouse and keyboard, they can pick that up right away. Versus if they see that I'm playing a controller input, that I have a controller plugged in, and that I'm looting like a controller player, doing this like a controller player, and I'm hitting shots like a controller player, they can equate that to being a controller player.
yeah.
That makes sense. That kind of helps roll into the next thing that I wanted to cover too. Is you see people, everyone's got their different insults for mouse and keyboard players. Everyone has their own different insults for controller players. We've all seen it on Reddit posts and Twitter. Wherever you go, it's going to be their YouTube comments, the whole thing. So at what point is skill on controller, you can look at it and go, okay, that's just a really good controller player. At what point do you say that one kill, that one fight, whatever it was, that's software doing it? That's, as people call it, soft aimbot. And I guess it kind of benches on the different values, whether it's console or on PC, but 0.4 aim assist is considered too high. And as someone who's played controller with no aim assist for 2 to 3 months in total, off and on, it feels very jarring coming back. So where's the line drawn between having aim assist help and having it feel completely dominated? Where's the line where we can look at it and go, okay, this very small amount of aim assist is necessary. Anything more than that would be too much.
I feel like it's hard to tell in some areas because but before I gave switching to 0.4 a chance, I was like, you remember how like new and fresh I was starting Apex. I started Apex controller 1-in-1 sensitivity, classic 70 FOV. I didn't know what FOV was until I played with him. Like,
I had to harass him every time we played.
Yeah,
to change it.
That's how new to everything I was. So like, when I came across like when he started talking about like PC values and like console values, I had already kind of been pampered by console value like 0.6. So like, and even then, like I've always been a very low sensitivity player. So like, my thumb goes all over the place when I'm firing at someone. So like, I don't know if it's due to just the fact that I've played on low sensitivity everything for my entire life. But 3-3 is like as high as I can get myself to go, like right now anyway. But getting there from 1-in-1, very difficult because I've just been a very low sensitivity player my whole life. So 0.6 almost feels like a necessity for me. That being said, since we've started playing on PC in like ranked recently, try to play more competitively, I have noticed that I don't really notice a difference. Like when I was on console and I switched 0.4, I kind of did, but like since playing on PC doing 0.4, it may just be a personal me thing, but I really didn't notice a difference, and I don't know if it's due to like the high frames that I'm getting or like compared to console, but like it hasn't really caused me any problems playing on PC and doing 0.4 as opposed to vice versa. But I think it really would ultimately depend on the player itself. Like me, I was pampered by 0.6, and if I was still on console with 0 PC experience, then I depending on how I felt when I switched on console, I might feel like I was worse. So
Yeah.
Like if it went down to like 0.3, for example, I'm sure I'd get accustomed to it eventually. But at first, it'd probably be very noticeable.
That makes
I
sense.
think it really is a problem that's caused by people getting accustomed to using it to close a skill gap. And what I mean by that is aim assist doesn't get affected by your sensitivity, but how difficult it is to pull off of aim assist does. And
Yes.
the reason that
absolutely.
I bring this up is when I switched to controller, right? I started off at ALCs. For my ADS, I used 176 over 176. That's a really high sensitivity. So on my controller, I could pull off really easily from the aim assist, and I preferred that when I switched, right? Because I'm a mouse and keyboard player. I want to be able to flick from head to head if I want to. I don't want that aim assist to slow me down. If I got really good with that sensitivity, that would be a high skill, right? But over time, I realized I lower my sensitivity, which makes it harder for me to counteract the aim assist, and I do better. So the issue is what you get used to, right? Jen Burton's playing at 500 hipfire right now. That's maximum hipfire, and he still does hit his hipfires. But the reality is, if you watch his VODs and compare it to somebody like Upsushi's VODs who plays 4-3, Upsushi can one mag you with a hipfire. You're not going to see a lot of Jen Burton one mags. So the line is more drawn in the sensitivity that you play with the aim assist that you're given versus the aim assist itself. Like he said, it was hard for him to go from lower sends to 3-3.
So let me cut in there real quick. Do you think that
Yeah.
there should be a different way that it's applied in settings? Do you think that there should be a different, say, an algorithm that kind of determines based on your sensitivity, it alters maybe some values that we don't know because we're not developers, and that it should change based on that?
And that's where the argument gets rough, right? Because in reality, there's not a way to do it. In a perfect world, you would think that you would make it equally as easy to pull off of an aim assist pattern on a lower sensitivity as you would a higher sensitivity, right? But the truth is, that's just not how the input works, right? If you're moving slower and aim assist is guiding you, then the slower you move, the harder it's going to be to get off of that guide, right? It's almost like a magnet. And the thing about aim assist, and you've played raw input, right? You've played a raw input controller, is that when you get closer to a target, your sensitivity slows down. It's very important.
Reticle slow.
Reticle slow you have to have it on controller in reality to stay competitive.
It needs to be there.
So you can't say get rid of aim assist in that way because reticle slow, no matter what sensitivity you're playing, when I played on 176, I needed it. So there's no way to fix it, but the hope would be is that aim assist is the same across all sensitivities because that would remove this 4-3 linear, 5-4 classic, 3-3 classic like pool that we're currently stuck in.
Yeah,
that is actually
yeah. I was gonna say there's people who actively switch from like ALCs to like lower sensitivity values like 4-3, 3-3 classic, just so they can get those easy 1 megs and stuff like that and be able to abuse their aim assist. Whereas like there's players who use like ALCs actively, like I don't know, Ecstasy maybe, Panders or stuff like that. You know what I mean? They play with like ALC settings with like when you're playing on like those high sensitivities, as Ekko was saying, like it's not that you have less aim assist, but it's more like, so how aim assist works is there's a bubble around your enemy players, and when your reticle crosses the bubble, it slows down. But also there's rotational aim assist that is also applied to that as well. So basically it tracks the bubble around the player, not necessarily the hitbox of the player, but the bubble. So I believe like what he's saying is like correct. Like, like that's where the skill gap really, like where they're trying to mitigate the skill gap is when they lower their own sensitivity in order to like abuse the aim assist that's already there.
That makes sense. So I've switched settings way too many times. When I was streaming, it was actually like, oh, he's changing his settings again 20 minutes in. I've played with every kind of ALC value. I've tried Jen Burton settings. I've tried Ecstasies, which is basically the same. And I can't play on those. You know, the most I can play on hipfire-wise is 250, which is half of the maximum input allowed. And recently, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, I actually turned ALC off, and I'm usually a big advocate for it. And I went to 3.3 linear, and it's definitely helped a good amount. And I'm getting a consistent, solid like 120 frames. So it's not even just like a frame rate issue or anything like that. There's not too much of a performance difference, although there is one when you go above from 120 to 240. So I'm at a very good level hardware-wise, and cutting ALCs off actually did help me be more consistent in fights. And that's kind of where this whole idea for this episode stemmed from. Is, you know, I've played around at all these different values. I've had aim assist off completely. At one point, I had it off for about 2 straight months, and Skua actually had to remind me. He's like, "You didn't know you have aim assist off, right?" And I was like, "Oh," and I forgot. And I was able to adapt. And then I turned it back on one day, and it felt insane. Like it didn't feel like it was doing it for me, but I was like, "No, I want to aim here. Why is it, you know, not letting me aim exactly where I want to?" As you were saying, Ekko, where when you have a lower sensitivity, it's harder to pull off from that target. And then that actually kind of helps me snowball into the next point, which is with aim assist, and this could be abused, which is why it's just kind of, you know, just some food for thought. Should aim assist go down over time with skill? Do you think that as you know, different MMR ratings affect a specific profile, do you think that your aim assist should lower progressively over time, or would that be a system that could just be way too easily abused?
I think that's the problem competitively. So in ALGS, you have tournaments where silvers, golds, platinums can play. Assumingly, it is competitive, so it's played at the highest level of play. So if a platinum joins ALGS, you have him playing in a tournament at a sensitivity that he wouldn't be playing on in ranks, or vice versa, because he's not at that skill level yet. So in reality, his quality of play goes down.
Whereas I heard that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I heard that like in tournaments they actually like have like an aim assist override button that like even if you play from console, like, you know, when you go into PC lobbies as a console player, you have 0.6 aim assist, which is 60%. I heard that in tournaments they actually have like a setting called aim assist override, which no matter what you play will put controllers on 0.4 aim assist.
They do, yeah.
That's when they introduced the Challenger circuit and allowed Xbox and PlayStation to join. They added that setting a couple weeks prior, and I spotted it in ALCs, and I called out. I was like, they're going to let us in. They're going to let console into ALGS.
Well, something I want to ask is, are we speaking strictly in the context of Apex Legends?
Right
or
now, it
do
seems
we know that these are...
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, obviously, we're all mostly familiar with Apex Legends, I would say. I mean, as of right now, for FPSs. But like, does anybody know if the inputs or the values are the same in, say, like COD or Overwatch, things like that?
So this is just my recent experience. All the way. Also, hi Smoke.
Hey Smoke, how you doing, buddy?
But I just want to make sure I can hear you, Smoke, because I don't know if I heard you when you said something.
I was muted because McKenna was screaming.
Okay, all right.
Like that.
So based off of the recent games that I've played, Orange, you remember I told you that I've been playing Destiny 2 since about when it came out, 2014.
Yep.
And I played it primarily on controller all the time. I've never once deviated from that until this year. I played Destiny 2 on mouse and keyboard, and within like a month and a half of playing on mouse and keyboard, not even, maybe like a month, I can't imagine myself going back to controller on Destiny 2, and which is weird because
It's
like
wild to me.
I love the aiming on Destiny 2 mouse and keyboard. It feels great. Like it just like, even in PvP, like I thought it was strictly like a PvE thing, and maybe that's why, because it was a lot more forgiving if you missed your shots. But then I played PvP as well, and I also preferred it in that. And so I think it does have to do with the game specifically. I also think that Destiny 2 has a stranger how it deals with hitboxes differently. Like what I noticed with the guns in that game is when you shoot it near someone's head, it'll kind of like magnetize to the headshot, as to where Apex Legends, like, you need to hit like their head. You know what I
need
mean?
the
Like, you need to, like,
physical character,
yeah.
like body.
So like,
Well,
so
like,
I
the
think
hitbox is probably
it
inside the model.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
it vastly depends on the game, because like different games incorporate different things. As I
Yeah,
said,
I was
Destiny
gonna add to
2
that.
does that.
For Call of Duty, it has standard aim assist, but they have options
Mm.
to change it to like precision and focused. And when I use that, like literally, it was probably stronger than point .6, to be honest with you. Like all these quick scoping, montage and stuff I see. A lot of times they have their aim assist set to focus, and it's like literally you will do a 360 following a person without moving your stick on that one. So I don't know how it
Yeah.
is for other games, but I know for Call of
I-
Duty, it is stronger than Apex.
I've seen specifically with the newest Modern Warfare 2 coming out that like it's absurdly strong. And so I guess I have like a question. Like, well, I guess not so much a question. It's more so just an idea that like obviously with time this is going to be refined. This is a very like new issue within the gaming community. And I think that's why it's such a hot button thing. People get very angry on Twitter about it, which, like, surprise, surprise, someone's angry on Twitter. But like something like you were saying, Ekko, I mean, there's literally a physical difference between a mouse and a controller. And that's why aim assist was created in the first place, was because there is a center point on an analog stick. Whereas, so if I'm tracking a guy from going from left to right, and then he changes directions on me all of a sudden, I have to stop moving my aim and then continue moving. Whereas with a mouse, it's all fluid. And so there's obviously a big challenge within that. And so I guess that's where the whole argument of like, how strong should aim assist be, And so, I mean, go ahead.
So this adds to both what we were just talking about in your current question. The big reason that aim assist is going off on Twitter right now is because Apex Legends, and we're talking about, why are we talking about Apex so much, right? Apex Legends was an esport that had a lot of money involved that was completely dominated by mouse and keyboard players. And very quickly, it's getting overtaken by controller players, right? So it's not necessarily that it's like, okay, this is a game that everybody plays and now controller's better. This is a game where people make money.
Yeah.
And now
okay.
controller is better, right?
Mhm.
So it kind of, whereas Warzone, right? Warzone, most competitive players had already played controller. A lot of the top players were already controller players. This is a game where in my first ALGS, there was 2 controller players in finals. And now if you look at current finals, it may be over half.
There's like 80% or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
It'll be over half soon.
I definitely think a lot of it has, and this is both my personal opinion and from what I've talked about with other people, it seems to be a shared opinion. May not be with everyone, but does everyone agree that mouse and keyboard has a higher skill ceiling? You know what I mean?
So,
like,
Yeah.
And controller is easier to learn.
It's more accessible to the general population. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
think
if
it's
like
easier to learn up to a certain point.
yeah,
Right.
that's what I
So-
mean.
Like to be at the highest skill level, to be able to compete against high level mouse and keyboard players, there's a giant learning curve. So I would say, take Apex Ranked for example. There's a learning curve all the way up to like the base level of Pred, and then in the competitive, there's a giant learning curve for controller players. And so your question of, is aim assist too strong? I don't think it is. I think that mouse and keyboard players aren't understanding their role properly. Okay, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one, right? I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one. I coach a lot of Apex teams competitively, and I know that there is a role for a mouse and keyboard player on every single team, right?
Yeah.
Mouse and keyboard players can apply better pressure, long range, than controller players typically. I'm not saying that there's not some scout god that's watching this podcast that's going to tweet at me, right? But in general, I see a mouse and keyboard player on a team, and I'm like, hey, you need to start picking up the scout, the wingman, charge rifle. You need to start picking up these long range guns, because an anchor is a very important part of the team, right?
Yeah.
An anchor can look around a 360 within half a second and know that he needs to shoot these people to keep them off his team that's pushing this other team, right?
Yeah.
So I think the debate is aim assist too strong? When in reality, the answer is they both accomplish different things at a competitive level.
See, I agree with Ekko on that one because, like, I've said this before too. Like, like you have to play to your input strengths and stuff like that. And when you don't do that, like, then you can see like a disparity in things, like a mouse and keyboard up close. Like, you know, there's some gods out there like Hawwtxsu or Timmy or other players that I'm not mentioning or whatever, but like it's really hard for them to trace up close. You know what I mean? Whereas like a controller kind of does a lot of it for you and whatnot. But also like that mid-range or that long-range pressure that he's talking about, that's like a mouse and keyboard strength, you know what I mean? So if you're playing to your input strength, then you would feel less of like that disparity thing, because it's like trying to, I don't know. I was thinking of an analogy, but I can't really come up with one off the top of my head.
When I was on mouse and keyboard, actually Orange, when we played with Silent Dude, I actually asked him, I was like, hey, how come I can't, like, when people are strafing left to right, like why can't I hit them? Like, because I was practicing on mouse and keyboard trying to, get better at it, because I wanted to. I want to learn how to kind of be good with both inputs if possible. And he mentioned that that specific scenario where it's hard to hit people strafing left to right with automatic guns specifically, is a lot of the reason why aim assist is very important to control players and why it's looked down on by other mouse and keyboard players. And this isn't geared towards like attacking them, but more so kind of like just to point out that, like what you said about strengths, like that what I was figuring out was not an M&K strength. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. There's many better people better than me. I'm new to it, obviously. But even Silent Dude is pretty experienced in mouse and keyboard, and he agreed that that's something that he has trouble with, and that aim assist generally helps you with that specific situation.
See,
I guess.
So
Okay, go ahead.
Ekko, like, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, dude.
You're good, dog.
So Ekko, you switched to a controller, so like as a mouse and keyboard player right now, and somebody who's played a controller for pretty much his entirety on Apex, we understand that like aim assist is like needed
Opposite
for
controller now, keyboard before. Yeah.
yeah. No. For me, it was controller then keyboard.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah. But we're both in that like little. We both have knowledge on both inputs, and we both like. I don't know. In my opinion, like it shows that like aim assist is definitely needed on a controller. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think a controller without aim assist is just brutal. Like, you would get brutalized in like PC lobbies or whatever.
It is, man. It's one of those things where, I mean, here's the thing too. It's like something that you touched on, Ekko, was that like mouse and key players need to understand like their role within the game more. And it's something I've experienced and would say I've come to the conclusion of, just from playing, because the skill-based matchmaking Apex is very unforgiving. And so whenever I link up with these dudes in the PC lobbies, we're put in with some of the best players in the game, And so I experience a lot of these really good mouse and key players, and I understand I have to approach fights completely differently than I would in a console lobby, because I know that I'm going to get laced by an alternator from 300 meters away. And that doesn't happen in a console lobby. I have to like play to my advantage, which is understand that I'm probably going to win the close range fight instead. So would you say it's just a simplified generalization that mouse and key is dominant long range, and then controller players are dominant close range?
I think that one has a long range benefit and the other has a close range benefit. I still think that it's player specific,
Okay.
Up until
Yeah.
a certain point.
100%.
Now, I will say, to backpack off of what you said, let me give you an example of what happened in season 4, okay? In the
Okay.
tournaments. Before that, and just a little background on me, where I did NA, EU, and often Japanese scrims every day for 6 months. So I have
Wow.
thousands of hours of scrim experience in Apex Legends, all the top lobbies of those regions, okay?
Okay.
Before controller players were implemented, we would often, as a team, take long range fights against teams. If I do a lot more damage than you, I assume that I am better than you, and I push you and kill you. That's how it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that when controller players were introduced into the game, and I absolutely fry some kid with a wingman or a scout, and he didn't touch me. And I'm like, oh, great. Like this kid, I'm going to roll him. I get close to him and I get one magged with an R9. That's where what is this?
Okay. See, that I like that perspective, actually. That makes a lot of sense. Not going to lie.
We started thinking, how did this happen? And we go through their VOD and we're like, aimbot. So that's kind of their strengths and weaknesses, right? So
Right.
even in that, we didn't realize it at the time. We were like, how do we fix this? How do we kill these people? We didn't realize that at the time, but we knew right there. He didn't do as much damage to me long range. And when I got close to him, he fried me. So there's the strength of both and the weakness of both.
Yeah.
But of course, the player themselves can definitely dictate.
It definitely has influence, I would say. And also, just something I would just want to add. I feel like I'm talking a lot. I feel like a lot of the the angry mob on Twitter and stuff, I mean, they got to be a loud minority, right? Like, we can't be the only ones with this kind of nuanced look towards aim assist, right? Like,
I think it's a majority.
You think so?
I think it's I think it's a majority. It depends on what context you're speaking. If you're speaking in the competitive scene, I think it's a majority. If you're thinking of the overall player, most players aren't on Twitter, so it would be a lot.
That's a very good point. Not everyone's going to be in that.
Console, aren't they? Like most of the player base.
Yeah, console.
Most of the player base will never get involved in this discussion. Besides maybe seeing it on a YouTube video or hearing about it vaguely, they don't really have opinions on it. But in the competitive scene, I would say that aim assist is definitely stated as an issue in the majority of mouse and keyboard players. But I think that may be, like I've said before, I think that's an excuse, and I've always said that. When players I coach, when players I coach are like, oh, it's because they're a whole roller squad. I'm like, okay, well, you want to play competitive Apex or do you not? Because I'm your coach, and I can tell you right now that you complaining about it isn't going to fix.
It's not going to go less aim
assist the game.
Like I was saying earlier, like when I first got on Twitter, Zmoke, I didn't even know you, but I saw your name floating around, and every time I saw you post, you'd be like, you basically calling out the other M&K players that were like complaining about controller players like in that way. Because like to me, the argument was very new because like I had just got on Twitter. I didn't really interact socially with the other with PC the player base. I never really interacted with them until I got on Twitter. But to also I was thinking like it's frustrating on both sides, the strengths and weaknesses you said, because I was thinking about it as you were talking, and you said, like you said, the simplified version, Red, where like PC long range, controller player short range, and I was thinking there's definitely different frustrations for both sides for that, because, for example, PC players, better question, like when you end a fight, most of the time you are right next to them. When a fight is ended, you are close range. You hardly ever
most of the time.
Team of three hardly ever kills another team of three long range. Like that doesn't happen as often. So while the console player has to approach the PC player and get through their strength in order to get to their strength, that's their struggle with that. But on the opposite side, PC players' strength doesn't so much kill a team. They have to move in to finish them off. Like what you were saying, Ekko, about like, oh, I just did super amazing against this guy, I should be able to kill him. So like while a control player has to approach the other team and fight their strength, they have to approach them, fight their strength. So it's the same thing in an opposite viewpoint if you look at it that way. You know, so it's I think the same exact thing is frustrating for both sides for pretty much the same situation actually.
Absolutely, I can see that.
I do agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that,
I do think that oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
oh no, you're fine. Go ahead.
The one thing that I believe PC players don't understand, and this frustrates me, and you said that Zmoke was involved in that conversation in the beginning, saying, hey man, you just got to learn how to fight the input, is that, and it bugs me about a lot of creators as well. They complain about aim assist as though they're complaining about the individual, right? So
Yeah.
you're a controller player, you have aim assist, you're the problem. That's not how it is. And it really bugs me, okay? And I tell all the teams I coach this is because, first of all, some people grew up on controller and it's easier for them. I'm going to play whatever input's easier for me. Second of all, there are some people that are disadvantaged compared to you who can afford a PC, a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, a microphone, right? There are some people that can't afford $5,000 to play your input, right?
Yeah.
And it bugs me. I saw something on Reddit where somebody had posted a clip of a pro, I'm not going to say the name, complaining about them directly. And they posted something on Reddit that said that I can't afford a PC. I can't afford any of that, but I can afford a console. I was really excited to see that you were in my lobby, and I was even more pumped to see I killed you. And I went to your reaction, and you talked bad about me as though I have an option to play mouse and keyboard.
That is a very, very good way to kind of put it in an anecdotal format.
Actually, now that you say that, because I was talking to some of my friends. So I live in Mississippi, where PC gaming isn't even a thing. So I've had to deal with that same situation because I'm literally probably only one of 5 people, probably in this whole state, that runs on a PC. And so I deal with people that, one, they can't afford a PC. 2, like we were saying earlier, it's more accessible for some people. Like, some people can afford a gaming PC, but they're not comfortable, I mean, with a mouse and keyboard, you know what I'm saying? So it's not fair for me to be like, oh, you got to play my input when, you know, 1, it's easier for me to play because, you know, I have long fingers. But 2, my PC was pretty much gifted to me by my Twitch sub. Like, I made $1,700 in a month. Everybody else can't do that. So, like, I hate when it's like you said, when you're attacking a player over something they can't control. A PS4 or Xbox $300 versus $2,000 for a PC to play the same game.
For a good PC to even run the game.
Exactly. And like, even I mean, even my PC, I'm having lag stuff, but like it's just hard to and the stuff that Red was talking about, my statuses were, you know, your problem was with aim assist, not the person that killed you. Like, you got to learn how to outplay this mechanic.
You got to separate the
instead
two.
of trashing players. Yeah, exactly. Instead of trashing players that have done nothing to you but play the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think it boils down to blame shifting. Like, so Ekko is a coach, and you know this happens all the time with players. Like, when you get killed by something, like you just want, like, they want to like blame something that isn't themselves, that isn't their own gameplay. It's easier to say like, oh, he's got aim assist or this or that, than it is to say, oh, I made a mistake. You know what I mean? It's easier for some players to do that. So I believe like that just kind of like adds fuel to the fire. Like, that's like indiscriminate. Like, they're
So I had this discussion a couple weeks ago with somebody. They were frustrated by somebody that got killed on by a console player, and they were on my team. And you know, they were arguing about it, or like going on about it for 30, 45 minutes. And I was like, yeah, you know, us PC players, we can super glide, we can, you know, do all this type of stuff, but you know how to beat aim assist? How about take cover instead of doing all these acrobatics? Like, there are ways to beat aim
take high ground, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but yelling at somebody for being on Xbox, that's not helping you. Like, that's you're just coming off as, you know.
It's like
I can guarantee you, if you go through the VODs of the first Apex tournaments where console could join, if you go through any of those VODs, 90% of pros, the second they got into a lobby and saw consoles, complained.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Facing them at first.
And do you know how upsetting that is to a console player who's excited to finally play in tournaments with your favorite pros? And you go in their VOD and you're watching their stream while you're about to play, and you just hear them complaining about you.
Yeah.
That's
It's not even
ridiculous.
about your input, about you. Like
It's a personal
specifically.
attack.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not. They're not calling out a
Right.
behavior or anything specific. They're just saying, hey, that person, they're less than
because
Yeah.
they're playing on console.
Exactly. And to
And
touch on it
I-
too, I've been. I'm sorry. 1 second, Skua. I've been playing console basically my whole life. I've only been on PC for about 6 months, and even then, console's still my primary. I've only been doing PC because I want to get into competitive, you know. And there's differences. I played on mouse and keyboard for 3 hours last night to try and get better, as Skua's been doing. And Ekko, you mentioned a story earlier. You can include it if you'd like. You don't have to, but talking about accessibility. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was 8 years old. Using a mouse and keyboard destroys my hands for days. These are inflamed. My bones hurt right now. I can't do it. It stretches out my ligaments. Using a controller, I've been using it my whole life. It sits comfortably in my hand. And it's not just about, I have aim assist. It's the accessibility. I can continue to play and not suffer later. And that's obviously a niche situation, but it's something that's never really taken into account, you know? And I just want to kind of throw that in there before we moved on, but feel free to continue, Skua.
Sorry. I wanted to
No,
backpack off that because I
No,
the same
you go
issue.
first. You go.
So when I was in the Marine Corps, I got hurt and it developed a nerve damage in my hands, tongue, and feet. I have tremors that get worse and worse over time. And I began playing mouse and keyboard in Apex, and over time I had to lower my sensitivity over and over again. And I can actually show you my 3 fingers on the right shake very badly. This is actually not a very bad tremor for me right now, but my 2 fingers right here are fine. Okay. So I've lowered my sensitivity. At one point, I was the lowest sensitivity mouse and keyboard pro in Apex Legends because these are my stabilization fingers for my aim. Right. In order to play Apex and enjoy it and not make myself feel bad for my aim going away, I switched to controller. And I've enjoyed playing on controller on Apex more than I have ever enjoyed the game, really. And that's because I have a disability that keeps me from enjoying the game on mouse and keyboard. So I play a different input.
Not for sure.
No.
As long as you're having fun with it, though, it's really.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot of what people nowadays aren't thinking about. With it's you just like you mentioned, like a lot of the problem comes from you make money. There's going to be some heat rolling around. But what I wanted to make about obviously not named pro players, because obviously it would be.
We're not trying to gossip. We're just trying to open discussion.
Yeah, we're not trying to gossip. But
Yeah.
another problem with pro players specifically, or just bigger streamers having a problem with the player themselves and not the input, is that they have a large following that are usually ride or die viewers, and they will kind of like a hive mind. They will like adopt your view set. If you are a big streamer
100%.
and you're like, that player's shitty because XYZ is using that, like, it doesn't mean every single person that's watching you is going to be suddenly converted to hating control players, but there's probably going to be a good amount of them. They're probably like, yeah, he's right. Screw those people. You know what I mean?
1,000
Like,
viewers, 10%.
Not that it's a topic to get into because it's a whole nother thing, but if Google parasocial relationships, and what Skua just said will make a lot more sense when you read about it. It's kind of startling in a sense. So
you mean
continue.
XQC isn't my friend?
No, he's not. He's
No.
not. He just
I
wants your money.
donated thousands of dollars, though, dude.
The problem that comes with that, though, is that all 6 of us recognize that that's an issue, and we may be vocal about it. But even the people who disagree, when the majority of the vocal people are saying one thing, you get the bystander effect. You kind of walk away from the situation because it seems like that situation doesn't really involve you, right? So, for instance, a big streamer goes on, trashes this console kid. This console kid gets hit up on Twitter and his DMs flood. That fades into nothing. It doesn't even exist on Twitter in about 5 minutes because that guy doesn't have the clout that the big streamer has. So now he's getting harassed because he killed a big streamer, and you won't hear about it because it doesn't generate Twitter impressions like the big streamer does complaining.
So
Yeah.
that actually happened to me in whatever season Low was released, season 6, I think.
Season 5.
I 5. So I killed. Well, me and my friend killed Zeus and Janks, and both of their chats just like harassed me for months. Now at the time, I didn't have the following I do now, so it's like I said something about it on Twitter, but I mean, who cares? I'm not Zeus, I'm not Janks, so I got jumped on for a couple weeks.
Which means you don't have the
I mean, you're
algorithm.
completely right.
Yeah.
It was actually
Yeah.
during season 5. I was playing, and I've mained Loba since she came out, and I was playing her trying to grind kills, and I was playing with my friend. We went up against Princess, who has since kind of blown up. She grinded I think like 33,000 kills on Loba during season 5, and I wasn't on Twitter at that time. It was shortly after, but I would see her in late night lobbies, and I would be like, oh, I want to see if I can like beat her, and it wasn't a a thing of like getting angry because she was better than me because she rolled me 9 times out of 10. It was exciting to be in that situation where I'm like, hey, this is person that's like doing this, really cool thing, and we go toe to toe sometimes, and it's fun. But then when I got onto Twitter, Reddit, all that, I was like, when this stuff happens, it just brews hatred for whatever reason. I was excited. That experience was fun. I enjoyed it. But nowadays, if you're in that space, I have YT at the end of my name, like I've actually gotten tagged in TikToks where people just scream at me and hate me while showing clips of them killing me. I'm not a big name. It's crazy the lengths people will go. But what you were mentioning earlier, Ekko, about people getting into lobbies with their favorite streamers and being excited about it and being like, oh, this is really cool, and then kind of getting dunked on later on the VODs or in comments, and how bad it just kind of feels. So I had that isolated experience that was fun and was cool to be in that same lobby, and it was just great. And it's so different now looking at how people respond to that, like you said, with the bystander effect. It blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I would say even
I
half of
definitely
those
agree.
bystanders that like adopt the opinion of the streamer don't even have any merit behind the opinion that they're adopting, because it's like, I bet half of those people aren't even gamers themselves. Like, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously if they did know anything about gaming, they would have their own opinion on it and wouldn't just like spew out whatever this person's saying,
Absolutely.
And that bugs me to a really high level, because the opinions of streamers, people take them as the word of God, right? Or whatever religion you have. Like they take that for fact. And a big opinion of streamers is that we should segregate lobbies for controller players or console players and go back to segregating lobbies. What do they not understand? Do they not remember season 3 and 2? Do they not remember 5-hour queue times? Do they not remember us having to wait for the queue to include gold players to get into a game?
That's what I was gonna say. I switched right before crossplay, and I don't want to go back to 15-minute queues. I don't. I would rather deal with the aim assist. Like,
it'd be real
rough.
sad. It'd be real sad. They actually do that, and now you got to wait 3 hours to get killed right out of the drop shit.
Right. Or I can't play with my friends. You know what I mean?
But guess what? You don't get to blame aim assist for your own issues now. So you get to wait 3 hours to play a game.
Then they'll blame literal aimbot then.
Yeah, I was I've seen clips where like people will like die and be like, friggin' aim assist, and then someone will go back and like someone else's stream, and it'll just be another MNK player that killed them, and they're just like
then that goes back to the blame shifting. Like,
yeah, it goes
back.
It's
so much easier to say something killed you instead of saying like I fucked up, man.
Oh, yeah, those are the people that don't improve. And I'm sure, Ekko, you've seen it where you're coaching people, you have all these hours. Those are the people, like, at what point do you see that mentality where someone can't accept blame and say, okay, what could I have done differently? At what point does that hit where you go, okay, they're not learning? Not to say they're a lost cause, because that sounds kind of harsh, but at what point do you realize, until they get past that hurdle, that they're never going to get better?
Typically, So I'm real calm right now, and you guys are seeing me in a calm moment. I'm a very adamant, like I'm more like a football coach of a esport coach instead of like your normal coach that you pay $40 an hour. I get very loud. When I get onto somebody about blaming aim assist enough, they typically get it. And the conversation that I have with them is, I'm your coach. I coach tournaments. You're here to play tournaments. You're here to win money. We're not about to. This is business. This is the business that you're entering. You're not going to change it. Suck it up and let's fix some issues. or go cry about it on Twitter, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like the truth is, if you're gonna blame aim assist on half of these fights, because look, competitive Apex has so much aim assist in it. Look at all the controller players. I don't want to go through every fight and be like, oh, Naughty is controller, that's why we lost the fight. Oh, this is on controller, that's why we lost the fight. I'm not gonna have that argument with you 50 times a day, because chances are every time you lose a team fight nowadays, you could blame controller. That makes coaching so hard for me, right?
You can't coach somebody out of that. You can't be all like, oh, next time we'll avoid the aim assist. Like that's so intangible.
My theory is you don't bring up aim assist again, or you find a different coach. Because I'm not here to coach you and pat your back and say, yes, young mouse keyboard player, it was the aim assist. You're right. No, I'm here so you can win money. So excuse what I'm saying, but shut up and do your job, because you want this to be a job, right? Shut up and do it. You know how much a controller is? Honestly, the guys I coach, I'll go buy you one. I'll send it to you because I'm making, like, I can do that if you want. You want to blame controller? Switch to it.
Yeah,
but you better win that tournament then. Pay me back.
It's one of those things too where it's like you would think it would be such a good learning point of like, it's like you could use the example of like, think if you can beat this aim assist, think how much better of a player you're going to be against guys who aren't using aim assist.
Build up the ego instead,
Yeah,
Well, like Ekko was saying, it's all business at the end of the day. You're not going to stop these people from using controller. Like, so what's the point of like complaining about it? Like, that's not going to win you tournament. That's not going to get you money. Like, you're just going to lose to the controller player at the end game. Like,
it's like what I used to tell people when I coached StarCraft, right? Because I did used to coach StarCraft a long time ago. When their race would get nerfed and another race would be powerful, and we go in and they're like, oh man, I'm playing Zerg and it's Protoss, I lose. Like, all right, we'll retire.
Yeah, they just leave the game.
Call them out right on the spot.
Forfeit.
Go work at McDonald's.
If you're done, you're done, man. Like, that's the truth. If you're done, you're done. You don't control what that game developer does. You are the employee, self-employed, or employed by an org, playing the game for money. Figure out how you're going to get that money. If you have to switch to that race, do it. Switch to that race. In this case, switch to that input, or get over it, fix yourself, and find out a way that you can get that money.
Absolutely.
So that's my mindset through the competitive area.
Yeah. Quick question, just off topic. StarCraft is an RTS, right?
Yeah. It's a war game. Yeah.
Just making sure. Yeah, because I know
really
it.
Fun.
I just couldn't picture it in my head.
So we've actually covered a lot of other topic points that I wanted to get into. Say you mentioned blame shifting. I actually had that on the agenda, and we did a great job covering that, I think, as well. Just to add on to that, and to kind of go on the offensive against controller, despite being a controller player. How do you guys think that enough people who play only on controller identify the benefits of aim assist, or do you think that they're just kind of oblivious to the fact that it is helpful at the end of the day? You can't deny that it's helpful, but do you think these people just don't, realize?
I think there's definitely a good majority that complain back at MNK players that complain. Like, I think that there's a good amount of console players that do they defend aim assist, but in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like, they just throw the same insults they're getting back. Like, they don't do it the way they should. And I do feel like in ways they do fail to benefit. Like I understand the benefit. And when I said earlier, where I've always been when I first started M&K, for example, when I say I was on the lowest sensitivity that I was allowed to have, this is before we had table-wide mouse pads. We just had the little square mouse pads. I would move my mouse over, pick it up, put it back over, put it back on, move it over, and I would do that 5 different times just to turn around 180. That was it. And I felt no problem with that. But my point is, the fact that I've always played at low sensitivity is kind of translated over to console. I don't know what it is. It's just hard for me to play on anything high sensitivity. But I was saying with that is, with aim assist, what you said, Ekko, earlier about lower helps you kind of work with aim assist better. With lower sensitivity helps you stay in the like the aim assist,
The field.
assist zone, whatever you call it.
Bubble,
Yeah, the field.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that in the times that I have turned it off, if I'm hitting a target that's dead in front of me, yeah, I'll hit my shots because it's not moving. But like, I do definitely notice the difference between like start of season 11, they nerfed aim assist and everyone had their suspicions day one, but then it was
I
like
think it
confirmed
was
day
on
2.
accident too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
it was on
'Cause I remember
console.
everyone was complaining, and I was like, "It feels fine."
Yeah.
Like, what?
I definitely noticed a big difference. I noticed that I wasn't hitting. I was still doing okay, but I did notice that I was not hitting as much of my shots as. And then when the news came out that they nerfed it by accident, I kind of had the realization like, oh, point 2 was feeling very different for me, and maybe
It's
that's just me
0.4.
specifically as an individual.
Point
Oh,
four,
I mean, I
yeah.
meant like point 2, like
His
the difference
sensitivity.
between.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. I
Oh,
misunderstood.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did notice that there was a large difference between the two for me specifically. Obviously not everyone's the same as me. There's plenty of people that probably play way higher sensitivities than I do. I'm just a low sensitivity player. I've trained myself to get up from 1 and 1, thank God. But I do notice that if I didn't have it where it is now, I mean, if I started Apex without it, who knows? But right now, if you gave me a lower aim assist and you told me to get used to it, I could, but I would notice the difference until I did.
Well, if
I
you
think-
remember,
Oh, sorry.
no, you're good. When you remember when that happened, like there was a huge uproar. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
Twitter was in play.
yeah. So, like, if you put that in perspective, a majority of the population of people who play Apex come from console. Obviously, you know, more accessibility as we were talking about earlier and stuff like that. So if they were to nerf aim assist, like you would put like a good 60 to like 80% of the player base in an uproar. Like, and that would be terrible for the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, playing from a controller when I would used to practice without aim assist in the firing range to kind of, you know, have my target acquisition better or whatever. And there is a gigantic difference. Like, it's way more fun to play with the aim assist because it makes you feel like a fucking badass. Oh,
It's okay.
Sorry,
You're
bro.
good. You're good.
It's okay. That's what editing's for.
You're fine.
Okay. Yeah. But
He said
like,
naughty.
when I
There's
okay,
a
so I
child
switched
in
from PC to yeah, I'm so sorry. I switched from PC to console, and the reason why I went to Apex versus like R6, which is a game that I'm extremely familiar with, was because Apex felt fun. It felt good. It felt like I was playing a PC game on console. You know what I mean?
Fluidity.
So
of
if you
Apex
change any
movement,
of that
too.
stuff, it's gonna suck for everybody, dude. Like, yeah, you'll have like, you know, 1% of the player base happy and aim assist is nerfed, but like, you know, you're gonna sacrifice 99% of people's like fun
But
because
see,
you had a problem with it.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would personally speak for the players that are on the opposite end though, because I was having trouble with 0.6. I would have a dude knocked in front of me, and I'm trying to look up at the guy that he's like. So, like, you know, you take cover behind a knocked teammate. I
Yeah.
would try to look up at the guy taking cover behind his team, and I couldn't get off of the freaking knocked character. So I was like, let me give 0.4 a shot. And I
You
play
could have
on
fixed that.
I
By
do play on
increasing your
higher
sensitivity.
sensitivity. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
play
like
on
he was
higher
saying earlier,
sensitivity,
yeah.
though. I do play on higher sensitivity, but I noticed that, like, I don't know if it was a bug or something, but like my aim would literally pull down towards knocked players. And so I was like, let me try less aim assist. And I did, and I would never go back personally. I feel like
played on
0.4 is
as
such
well.
I feel like 0.4 is such a good spot. And I
Mhm.
feel like if that what the other thing too is context of what people are used to in the game. The game came out with 0.6 as the default aim assist. So obviously that's what people are used to at this point. If the game released with 0.4 aim assist, I don't think anyone would be complaining at all because that's what they would be used to, right? Like,
Yeah.
Changing it now would
When you
create a
take something
stasis
away-
break, and they would
Yeah.
notice it, kind of like what's the start of Season 11. For context, anyone watching who doesn't know, when Apex released Season 11, they apparently accidentally lowered aim assist across all consoles from 0.6 to 0.4. You could feel it. I played day one. You could notice it. At that point, I wasn't playing on 0.4 yet, so for anyone who wasn't aware.
When they implemented the tournament change, They accidentally implemented it to all console servers. So the tournament change was that you could lower aim assist to 0.4 so that console players could play tournaments with PC players.
Gotcha.
So for this question, right, is that do controller players realize what aim assist does? And I think that the indicator that controller players realize what the advantage of their input is compared to mouse and keyboard players, the signifier of that is how they play. Okay.
Yeah.
Mouse and keyboard players still trying to take close range fights all the time, they're trying to fight the whole range, whereas controller players in essence know that they have a specific range that is better for them, right? So I think that if we're going to argue one versus the other, I believe controller players know the strengths of their input much better than mouse and keyboard players do.
100%.
Okay, that's an
I'd have to agree with that,
interesting input on it.
That's a
I
pretty
agree with
interesting
that.
take.
That is good.
Yeah.
We still have mouse and keyboard players that are running PKR9, you know, as their main loadouts in tournaments.
Okay,
And
I didn't deserve to be called out here.
That's
Yeah.
me too. I'm not gonna lie, that's me too.
or not controller players, mouse and keyboard players. I said that right.
You said mouse and
So
keyboard.
we have mouse and keyboard players running PKR9 as their main loadout in tournaments. That might be your best loadout, but it is not the most advantaged loadout for your input. Whereas there's not a lot of controller players running, you know, sniper with, you know, XYZ. There's not a lot of just sniper in general. Anything above a 4x, there's not a lot of.
Oh,
controller players doing
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think Wig is the only one I know that's just religiously running it like that.
Yep. And if you look, watch a VOD, watch a controller player pick up a Mastiff in a VOD of a tournament. They know who their mouse or not a Mastiff, sorry, a Kraber. They knew who their mouse and keyboard player is, and that's who that's going to.
That's
typically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I avoid it.
So
I
even a
can't pick it up.
controller player knows a mouse and keyboard strength better than a mouse and keyboard player does.
And coming from you
100%.
coaching a hybrid, I imagine, of different inputs across all the
That's
different
super
teams you've
interesting.
coached, that, you know, I think that holds a lot of weight. And that is interesting. When I had originally written that question down, I thought, you know, and as a controller and console player, I was like, I don't think most of us realize, you know, that what the benefit is, you know, not saying that it is way too much, but I was like, I don't think most of us realize it. But I think that kind of comes from being jaded from playing on controller and trying to keep an open opinion. So what you just said, it kind of opened my eyes more than I expected when I brought the topic up. So anyone else feel that way too? Like it was like really eye-opening?
I feel like I feel like I've learned.
Talking about?
I feel like I've learned a lot just from listening to the discussions through the questions. Honestly,
Are you talking about the? I'm so sorry, but are we talking about like the strengths of it? Like as you was like talking
about how
just like a second ago?
keyboard and mouse players don't necessarily identify. Sorry, Ekko, you can go ahead and say it. I'll butcher it.
Oh,
Your input forces you. A controller input forces you to identify your strengths and weaknesses. Linear input like mouse and keyboard does not.
oh, okay, yeah. No, that's a really good one.
So subconsciously, you do know the strength, even if you're not thinking about it consciously.
Got it. Absolutely. And
That
I think
makes
that's a
sense.
very, very interesting point. And then, you know, I think we've covered a lot of the topics that I originally set out to, and this has been very Apex focused, as we're all you know, Apex players. I've played since day one. You know, it's kind of, when I hear aim assist, if you Google aim assist, the first 5 or 6 results are all Apex Legends. It's you know, mostly a hot button issue in Apex. Red, did you want to say something?
Oh no, I was just raising my hand because I also been playing since
yeah.
day one. Sorry, I'm not
No, you're
important
good.
here.
No, I didn't know if you had something to say or not, but you know,
You're important to me.
trying to break away from just Apex. Have you guys noticed any other conversations regarding aim assist in any other major FPS games? As you had mentioned, Ekko, a lot of people on Call of Duty, they came from controller. It was a console-dominated esport, so we don't really hear about it there. The only one I've heard recently, is only for a short amount of time, is with Hawwtxsu with crossplay enabled. Aim assist is disabled if you're in a PC lobby, I believe. However, it works there.
Oh,
But if you guys
Which
have
I
any
don't
other
believe that's
arguments,
fair.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's fair. I don't think that crossplay enabled should disable aim assist. I think that is developers admitting defeat towards content creators.
It's definitely like the easy way
yeah.
out on fixing the issue, right? Like,
why have crossplay at that point?
right?
So,
Yeah.
There's no reason to have crossplay. That's you're committing. You're killing your sheep before it's born.
Don't worry,
If
I'm
that makes
sure
sense.
as long as the controller player is using Reinhardt specifically, there'll be no problems, right?
Yeah.
Well, like as a
He doesn't- he
controller
doesn't
player,
have
why
to-
would you want to play
He doesn't have
crossplay
to
if you
aim,
can't
it's
use
fine.
aim assist? You're just gonna get, just destroyed by the Widow or whatever.
I was
I'm
gonna say,
not
me,
using
the
Overwatch,
aspiring
so-
Widowmaker.
And
Yeah,
don't get me
I'm a
wrong.
main-
especially if they want to get into esports. I mean, starting off
Yeah,
with
I
it,
guess so.
not really fair.
Yeah.
I also believe that that's like on the developer. That's an L because you're
Mhm.
taking away. I think Apex introducing console to tournaments is a W. You're giving players that are disadvantaged but may have a high skill level. I'm not saying all console players are disadvantaged, but there are console players that are, right? You're giving them the opportunity to try something that they wouldn't be able to. That's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
In Overwatch, it's an L because if they implemented some sort of aim assist or some sort of way to keep, because without aim assist, controller will never be mouse and keyboard.
Yeah,
Maybe
in
there
order
will
to take
be
it seriously, you have to switch to mouse and keyboard at this point.
Actually,
right.
I have
and
a.
that's not something you want to be told,
Yeah.
Like you have an Xbox One, Xbox Series X, whatever, PS4, PS5, whatever, and you're at home and you're like, man, I'm really good at this. I'd love to play in an open tournament. And you look and it's like, oh, PC only. Like, that's a dream killer. It doesn't even matter if you get first rounded or second rounded. You know how many people have DM'd me on Twitter that are like, hey man, I watched your videos on YouTube, your guides when I first started playing, and I'm so excited I get to see you in my lobby, and they're a console player and they get first rounded. They don't care that they got first rounded.
Yeah, I would say half the time they're still having a good time. They don't care.
Have
They
fun,
just happen to be
yeah.
there.
Exactly.
A more
It's the
personal
exposure.
story when it comes to like the Overwatch thing, like literally happened the other day. So you guys know Hunter, right? Really
Yeah.
nice guy, awesome, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I was in an Xbox party on my computer, talking to him. We were playing Apex, and then they wanted to switch over to Overwatch. And then one of my friends was all like, "Oh, like Sid, come play Overwatch with us." And then somebody said, "Oh, if he plays with us, then the aim assist will be turned off." And they didn't want to really play with me because like their aim assist was turned off. And like, so I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like your average player, because I'm sure there's players out there who play on PC, but like, their console friends don't want to play with them because their input's being nerfed. When
you're
added in
killing
crossplay.
crossplay. Yep.
Yeah.